So, hello everyone, welcome back to PC 301, and we are ready with the final session of the day. And we have with us Vaishali Suryanarayanan from University of California, Santa Barbara, and she'll be talking on parameterized approximation, which is the final talk in the series. So, thank you so much for joining us, Vaishali. Over to you now.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk in this workshop. And as Pratibha mentioned, I'll be talking about parameterized approximation today. Um, yeah, I'll be talking about a result, which is a parameterized approximation scheme for minimum K-cut. This is joint work with Daniel Oxtenow and Sakit Saraf. First, like though you've been looking at min K-cut previously in this series, let me start by giving the definition of a K-cut. So the input is a graph G. It can be a weighted graph and an integer K. And the task is to partition this graph into K parts. And what is the goal? The goal is to minimize the sum of total weight of the edges crossing the partition, right? And if this graph is unweighted, then the goal is just to minimize the number of edges that cross the partition. And now if K is equal to 2 and the graph is unweighted, this is just the normal min cut problem. Okay, though I'll be mostly focusing on the algorithm techniques, let me briefly give the history of the problem to motivate the problem. So this problem is known to be NP complete, and it's a really well studied problem. And like this is more than 10 to 15 years back. Sarin and Vazirani gave a polytime 2 approximation for this problem. Actually, like three different set of authors gave a polytime 2 approximation, but these two were the first ones to find it. And one can actually say that this greedy is actually a 2 minus 2 by k approximation. And the greedy is simple, like iteratively keep removing the min cut from the graph in each connected component, and then what you have left after you get k components is a 2 approximation. And recently, I think like 3 or 4 years back, Manorangsi proved that this is the best you can do. You can't get a better than 2 approximation, assuming the small set expansion hypothesis. And then on the exact algorithm side, Goldsmith and Hobsbawm gave the first exact algorithm, followed by the famous Kagerstein algorithm, which I think Saket mentioned before, and followed by a deterministic algorithm running in the same runtime by Thorup. Here, Thorup introduced a concept called Thorup or T-trees, which we'll be using to design our algorithms, and I'll be covering that in the talk today. And Dorney, Estville, Fellow, Preto, and Rosamond gave the hardness result, saying that there's no end to the little o of k time algorithm under ETH. So this also means that the problem is W1 hard when parameterized by k. And that brings us to the topic of study, which is a parameterized approximation for this problem. And here our goal is to get a parameterized approximation better than 2. Yeah, because 2 is possible in polynomial time, and combining the two results of hardness of approximation better than 2 and W1 hardness, this brings us to a natural problem of parameterized approximation. So just to motivate further, there was a lot of work. So it was initiated by Gupta et al. And Gupta, Lee, and Lee. And they started this stream of research with a 1.9997 approximation in FPT time, followed by a 1.81 approximation. And sometime before we had the result, Kawarabayashi and Lin gave a 1.67 approximation in FPT time. So the natural question was, okay, how far can you do? Like in FPT time, what's the best approximation one can get? And that is what we say. So our result is that you can do for any epsilon greater than 0, you can get a 1 plus epsilon approximation in FPT time. So to just clarify, what our algorithm will give you is a k cut whose weight will be no more than 1 plus epsilon times the weight of an optimum solution, and the algorithm runs in time k by epsilon to the k poly n. Okay. And so to get this algorithm, one main ingredient was an S to the K algorithm for unweighted graphs. This is an exact algorithm where S is the cut size. Yeah. So this is what we'll be focusing on today. So we'll be looking at an S to the K algorithm on unbreakable graphs, which Saket has also talked about before. So I think that was his first lecture. He gave you an S to the S algorithm. We'll be looking at the S to the S algorithm and observing how to actually modify it to get an S to the K algorithm. And one can also prove easily that both these results are optimal up to ETH and constants in exponent. So what this says is that basically the form of the function is the best one can do. So if one wants to improve, the things that you can improve is the polynomial factor or the constant in the exponent. Yeah. So now moving on, we'll look at the main proof ingredients. It's threefold. So first is an 1 plus epsilon approximation reduction to a graph having bounded optimum. Yeah. So S is bounded in the resulting graph. And the second one is a polynomial time unbreakable decomposition. So Saket already mentioned in his talk what is an unbreakable decomposition. I'll be reviewing it again. But the second ingredient is getting that in polynomial time. And the third one is the S to the K time exact algorithm. And in this talk, I'll be highlighting the first part, just the steps involved there, because it's very similar to cut sparsifiers, and and we'll be looking in depth about the third part. Okay, now on to work. So assumptions. So I'll be assuming throughout this talk, just for simplicity, that the graph is unweighted and optimum is known. Uh, like for guessing, you can just guess the optimum, or you can use an approximation. I'll use the approximation algorithm to get an estimate of the optimum. So that's easy. And yeah, one can easily convert a weighted graph to an unweighted graph with multi edges by using familiar knapsack style rounding techniques. So we'll just assume it's unweighted. Okay, so moving on to the first step. The first step of the algorithm, as I told you, is sparsifying the graph. Yeah, to an opt which is kind of like k log n by epsilon. So the first step here is to get rid of all small cuts in the graph. Yeah. So what do I mean by small cuts? Any cut of size like epsilon times opt by k. I claim that we can pick this into our solution without doing any harm to the approximation. Can someone tell me why this is a valid step? Why one can do this to get an and still be okay? What I'm claiming is that, okay, if there is a two cut in your graph of size at most epsilon opt by k, I'm claiming that we can pick it into our solution. Like, just cut it, now you'll get two more components and recurse on the connected components. So okay, so let me tell you. So why is this valid? It is valid because, look, even if we do it k times, how much will it cost you? It will cost you at most epsilon times opt, right? And since we want only an approximate solution, we are okay with it. Yeah, so we are okay with the epsilon factor. Okay, so now let's see. Now let's see the second step. So the second step, as I mentioned earlier, is very similar to cut sparsifiers. So in the sense that you just want to preserve these k cuts, yeah, kind of approximately preserve these k cuts, and but what we want is in the resulting graph, we want the optimum to be bounded, right? So what we do is with some probability mentioned here, we keep the edge or we discard it. This is all we do. So finally, what we can show using a simple using Chernoff and Kargar's bound for number of cuts of size I, you can say that every k cut in the graph is within 1 plus or minus epsilon of its expectation. Yeah, and you can say that your opt in this graph is bounded. So now now what happens is you can just worry about working on this graph, because you know that this you have a resulting graph which is sparsified, which preserves the cuts, and it has like bounded size, right? Bounded optimum. And so now for all our purposes, we'll assume that S is bounded. Yeah. Uh,
Okay, just to understand, I had a question when you said pick a small cut and then we can recurse on two of the parts. Is k changing for each of these instances?
Pardon?
So
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
saying is,
Mhm.
should I repeat?
Yeah, I did understand what you asked. 1 second. So, oh, what you're saying is okay, yeah. So, you can recurse, or you can just like for 1 second, let me see. So for yeah, so finally what you can do is like just guess how much k is there. So you'll have like at most k paths, right? Now just a very brute algorithm would be like just guess how many k, like k1 from first part, k2 from first part, and like kl from the last part, and there l is less than k, so it'll incur an extra k to the k time, but that's okay because
Okay.
we're just dealing with fpt
So
time.
it doesn't harm you in terms of the running time. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
it doesn't harm you in terms of the running time. But you can do something intelligent, like you can do a DP of sorts to, get a better bomb. Like, but this was so what I'm saying is it doesn't matter. So you can just like guess how much it is.
Okay.
Is this clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so basically now we are left with a connected graph such that the S is bounded in this graph. Yeah. Now let's go to the next step. Why is this useful? So before we go to see what the algorithm does, let's see why this is actually useful, like getting an S to the K algorithm, right?
So
So Saket
just
told like,
a minute, okay.
pardon?
So you are looking for k divided by epsilon whole to the k. So you're saying this is why it is okay. Epsilon is greater than 0, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-mm.
Thank you.
You're asking for the first step, right? So
Yes. So
yeah.
actually, I didn't understand that part. Thanks.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so first step, what I'm just saying is that if you have a small cut, you can just include it in your solution. Why that is okay is, suppose you were doing this like k times. At worst, you'll do it only k times because
But
you just want
actually,
k.
I don't think so. Including it is not a problem. So I didn't understand the part where you said you recurse, but now I think I understand.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Fine. So yeah. So now let's see why bounding opt is useful, right? So now why bounding opt is useful is, let's see if we can use the S to the S algorithm that Saket derived in the first talk. Yeah. You can't use this algorithm. Why? Because like just substitute S to the S here. Your running time will be worse than N to the K, which is like the best, exact algorithm one can do for this problem. And so what about S to the K? Why is this good? Like S to the S is not good because you're going to get a very bad running time. But it turns out that S to the K will, like for the bound, when S is bounded to be like 100k log n by epsilon cube, turns out that for S to the K will be FPT time. So why is that so? Yeah. So if you just plug in the value and for S to the K, as you can see, you get an FPT runtime, and that is why like designing an S to the K algorithm is useful. With this, let's move on to our result. So let me just quickly recap what is unbreakability. So a vertex subset is said to be Q as unbreakable if for every cut AB, yeah, of order S, yeah, so the edges crossing AB is S, then at least one of A or B is less than equal to Q. Yeah, one side should be small. And now if the graph is said to be unbreakable if the whole vertex set is unbreakable. Yeah. And now let's look at how a k cut will look in an unbreakable graph. Yeah. So so how it will look is one side will be small, right? All like k minus one of the parts will lie on one side, and only one part will lie on the bigger side, right? So essentially only one part will be big, all the other parts like joint, the union is small, so each part is small. Yeah. So these are small parts and large parts. And throughout this talk, I'll be referring to like, now let's assume that when referring to the optimum solution, I'll be referring to the large part as a large part and small parts as small parts. So I'll be using the term part for it. Okay, so now let's look at the S to the S algorithm that Saket told you earlier. So the step in that algorithm was color each vertex in component I. Okay, so the color coding is just that you color every vertex with color I with probability 1 by k. Yeah. But what is the good event? The good event is that every vertex in the small part is colored the color of that part, and in the large part the boundary vertices are colored with the large color, right? So let's look at a picture. So what happens is, like, look at one is colored purple, right? Now in the resulting coloring, you want all the vertices of 1 to be colored purple or 2 to be colored pink, and the boundary vertices in K to be colored with black, which is the color K. Yeah. So this is what you want. And what is the probability of this happening? It's just like 1 by k over q plus s. Yeah. But now, like, and then there was a simple way to just get s to the s algorithm, k to the s algorithm from this. But now for the s to the k algorithm, I'd like to do a different type of coloring. So first what I'll do is I'll obtain an alternate s to the s algorithm using only 2 colors. Yeah. And then I'll show how to generalize that to an s to the k algorithm. Yeah. So first, we want the same, similar to what we did in the multicoloring using K colors. We want to color it using 2 colors. Yeah. So now let's look at, like, we want to color every vertex red or blue with equal probability. Yeah. And now what is it I want? The good event is each vertex in the small part is colored blue. Now in this coloring, I don't care, like, they should get like different colors. Like, everything in the small part should be blue. That is my goal. And you would have guessed already that the vertices in the boundary should be colored red. This is what we care about, right? And now, like, if you had multicolored it, it was fairly simple to, get the optimum cut. Like, you could just like guess which of the if you remember what Saket told, just get which of the small components went together and do something to get the k to the s algorithm. But here, because we are using just 2 colors, it's slightly more complicated, but we'll see that it's not that complicated. You can just use an abstract style DP for this. Okay, before that, let us observe some properties of this cut. Yeah. So is the coloring clear? Can you give a +1 in the chat if you understand what I'm doing here, like how I'm coloring the vertices? Okay. So now let me proceed. Now that we have the coloring, let's see what is the property, what are the properties that are satisfied. So all the red vertices are from the large part. This is clear, right? This is trivial. Just by the coloring, if our good event happens, then what happens is all these small vertices are colored blue. So the red ones are only from the large parts. Yeah. And now another thing is, now let's look at the graph induced by the blue vertices. Yeah. So now if you see my mouse cursor, like, all these small parts are colored blue, and the non-boundary vertices, some of them are colored blue, right? Now look at the graph induced by these blue vertices. Yeah. Now I'll be talking about some properties here. Now in this graph induced by blue vertices, look at the connected components. Yeah. Either all vertices in each connected components are from small parts or from the large part. Why is that so? Because now look, if you look at this diagram, you see an edge marked with X, right? So such an edge cannot happen. Like, a blue vertex in the large part cannot be adjacent to a blue vertex in the small part, right? So any component in the graph induced by the blue vertices cannot have an edge between blue vertex in the large part to a blue vertex in the small part. Yeah. So any connected component in this blue, the graph induced by the blue vertices should be from small parts or should be from large parts. Yeah. And now the second property is that every small part is contained in some connected component. Why is this so? Because this is a cut, right? And now if you look at these blue vertices in one component, they have to be connected, right? Like, because we have a k cut, and now we have that every part in this k cut is connected, right? So if you look at the graph induced by blue vertices, all the vertices in the same part will be in the same connected component, right? So let us look at it in a different perspective, in using a different diagram. This is how it will look. So if we see all the properties that I've mentioned, this is how it will look. Look at the red vertices, and now look at the blue vertices. Yeah. What was the first property? Every red vertex, all the red vertices are from large part, right? So this r dash is the boundary vertex, and all the other remaining vertices are also from the large part. So these are from the black part. And now in the graph induced by the blue vertices, which is on the left side, G of B, you look at the connected components. B1 is one connected component, B2 is one connected component, and so on. Like, there are like L connected components, say, and L can be large. Like, so now, if you look at each connected component, now what did we say prove before? Everything is either from the large part or from small parts, right? So that's what I've mentioned. So if you see, B1 is from large part, B2 is has small parts, yeah, and B3 has small parts, and if you see, BL minus 1 is a large part. So every connected component is either fully from large or fully from small.
I
Yeah.
have a question. So,
Yeah.
talking about the small part, aren't they internally connected themselves, given that the good event is happening?
Oh yeah, they are internally connected themselves. Yeah. So so there are edges within. I've drawn only the cut edges.
Right. So then, second point is automatically enforced, right? Like
Yeah, it's enforced. I'm just telling it so that it will be useful whenever.
that this happens. Okay, fine. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
it automatically happens. Yeah, that's true.
Thank you.
Together they may not be connected. No, everything may not be connected. Some
No,
yes,
no.
but some may not be connected, right?
I mean, like, what I mean is, now if we go back to the graph, yeah, you have this 1, 2, 3, and so on. Like, you have these k minus 1 small parts, right? What I'm saying is, the small part will be contained inside some connected component. Like, the small part, if you see this pink part, it won't be broken into some bi and bj. It will be in the same thing because it's connected, right?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Is this clear? But this purple and pink component may not be connected, because
Right.
they might not have any edge between them in the graph. So they might have like an edge going to the big component and coming back. So that's how maybe they were connected in the graph. So they could be broken. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So now we have these observations, and can you please give +1 if you've understood this, so that I can move on to the DP part? Okay, I see a couple of +1s. So let me move on to the DP part. So now we have the structure. Yeah. So now this coloring is just for you to visualize that this property is there. But we don't know which ones in the blue side, which components are from the large parts and which are from small parts, right? We don't know that. Yeah. And before that, okay, there's one more property. The third property is that we can assume that each BI is at most Q. If not, we can recolor it to red. So why is that possible? Because you know that every connected component is either from the large side or from the small side. Yeah. Now we are only interested in those from the small side, right? And because the graph is unbreakable, there can't be more than Q vertices in the connected component if they are from small side. So if it's greater than Q, just color it to red. Yeah. Okay. With this, now we are going to do DP over blue components. Yeah. I'll just be defining the DP. So now, so this is what it looks like. So the previous diagram I had was just to show you how the solution will actually look like, but this is all we know. For us, we know, okay, there are some red vertices, there are blue vertices, we don't know which is which. Yeah. So now let's do DP over the blue components. So DP of ij is a state which says, what is the best J partition of the graph induced by R union the first I parts? Yeah. So this black boundary that I've shown, look at the graph induced by these vertices. Yeah. What is the best J partition possible? Yeah. And now, why are we able to do a DP? So intuitively, if we go and look back, why can we do a DP like independently? We can handle these BIs because each small part is contained inside. So if we just guess now, if I include a new BIth component, yeah, this BIth connected component, what happens is it has edges only to the red parts. Yeah, it doesn't have edges to any of the other parts. And now you know that what are its choices? Guess how many small part it contains, or whether it is a large part. Yeah, so that's why intuitively you can do a DP. Yeah. So now, and DP of I, oh sorry, so this must have been 0j. So DP of 0j is best J partition of GR. So
But
the second part must have been
just to
DP of,
clarify, when you say best J partition, you mean into J parts, is it?
yeah, J parts. Yeah. So best partition into J parts of this graph, like of GR in the second case, or like G R union B1 union B2 until BI. Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at the base case is simple. Like base case is I is 0. So you have only the red vertices. And now what happens in this base case is you can have only one component, right? You know that all the red vertices should occur in the large component. Yeah. So 0, 1 is just 0 because if you look at the induced graph, there's just one part and the cut size is 0. And for all others, just put infinity because it's an infeasible cut. Yeah. And now for the general case,
Just to clarify, so if
yeah.
it's only the red part, then is it clear that the red part should be connected? Why did you say there is only one component?
Pardon?
Probably I
Oh,
missed
okay.
something.
So it's not clear. So what time? Okay, so let me do it this way. So 1 second. So oh, I understand what you're saying. So there might be multiple components here, but all of them. So okay, so we don't care about whether they're connected or not. They all belong to the same component. So in the solution, they all should be in the same part. Yeah.
Okay, so even if there are multiple components, you just count it as one. Is that what you are saying?
Yeah. So just coloring for the sake of just like for the sake of the DP, we'll just assume that the red parts will get built here on. But in the first case, we know like why are we putting 0, 1 is only 0 because you know that all the red vertices should occur together in your cut. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Finally, yeah.
Vaishali, so in the DP table, what you're trying to construct is there's a hypothetical solution in which this red vertices all go into one part together, and you're
Yeah, that's
trying to reconstruct that hypothetical solution using this DP table, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So actually, my bad. So I shouldn't have written best J partition of
Exactly.
GR.
That's the, I think, confusion, because there can be multiple bets and one of the solutions need not have this configuration. So I think that's the confusion.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So I should have just written that. Yeah. So the base case is that all R vertices are together. So yeah. Okay. So now what you can do is you can just guess like how many parts are from, like when you're adding this BIth component, you can just guess from the graph induced by B1 to BI minus 1 and union R, how many parts are there. Yeah. And how many parts BI actually contributes to the solution, right? So now when you're filling DP of IJ, you just say, okay, let me see. Okay, so this is the set of cuts. So what I'm doing is totally I need J parts. How many parts are from the induction from BI minus 1 components and how many parts are inside BI? Yeah. And now you just go over all parts of BI which have at most J components. Yeah. And then say how many of them are from, so if you just say C is a cut and number of parts from C is so parts of C, so the remaining J minus parts of C parts will come from the induction step, so from BI. So the graph induced by R union BI is what it will come from. Yeah. And then you just add the cost of C, right? So within and across. Yeah. So now actually, yeah, so it should be cost of C plus the edges between C to the red parts. So that should also be included here. Yeah. So now So now what happens is, why do we have this minimum thing is because your component can be included in the red component, right? In that case, you're not cutting any edges. You're just making it go along with the red component. So in that case, it's just I minus 1 comma j. Yeah. So yeah, so this is what you have. And yeah, so I think I might be missing some base cases here and there, like yeah, let's see. Yeah, so there might be some edge cases to handle, but this is the overall view, right? So now the core part is that to understand how many possible ways we need to go through this for each DP state, how many possible cuts do you need to consider, right? So now your BI by property 3 has how many vertices? It has only q vertices, right? So now j can be at most k because we are only looking for k partition. So now what happens is you just worry about k per q, right? So each vertex has a choice of going in which component. So there are like at most k components and there are at most q vertices. So it's k into k into k q times. So it's at most k per q choices, right? For how the vertices are partitioned. And now, so what will be the runtime now? Like if you just assume that q is s because you are caring about like order s comma s unbreakable graphs, then it'll just be k per s polyant thing, right? So now combining this, what algorithm do you have? The coloring took 2 per s plus q time, so which is 2 per s time, order s time. And this takes k per order s time. So this is just a k per order s algorithm. Yeah. Okay. So now we have this k per s or s per s algorithm.
Hi,
And
Vishali.
now let's, yeah.
Sorry, I had a doubt. I don't know if you already covered it or maybe I just missed it. So, when you have these blue parts, a blue part contains a lot of small components, right? A blue part might contain a lot of small components, right? And how do you identify the components inside the blue part?
So
Oh,
that is what we are doing here. So,
that's why you look at all partitions of the blue part?
yeah, look at all partitions of the blue part. So that's why there are k per q choices. So,
Okay, but then just to avoid this partitioning problem inside a blue part, won't it help if you colored the edges to begin with instead of vertices? So suppose you already colored the edges that go across all the parts. They are also at S, right?
One second, let me see. So you colored all the edges across all the paths. Oh yeah, I think you, yeah. So you can do that. So I think that's what Saket did in the beginning. So like, okay. Oh, you mean by 2 colors? Okay. Yeah, I
So
think
basically,
something
you
like
just
that
color
can
the
be done.
edges that go across all the parts with some color, let's say red, and the edges inside the small components with blue. And then I think you'll just completely avoid this partitioning problem because if they cross edges amongst all the components are colored with a different color, these two small components can't club into one big component because there are these witnessing edges.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. But as I mentioned earlier, like I'm just developing a framework which can be easily extended to the S to the K algorithm. So this is not the best you can do for an SK to the S or S to the S. Like what Saket told initially using these many colors is a very simple way than this. But I'm just building a structure so that now when you see the S to the K algorithm, it'll just fit into it. Yeah.
No, but I still don't see because I think you'll get the same probability bounds with the edge colorings, and in fact, the DP will be polynomial time now. So that was my doubt. But anyway, we can go ahead if maybe you want the vertex coloring for different reasons.
Mm-mm.
Because if we do two colorings with edges, like again, the probability that they cross edges get colored some red is 1/2 per s,
Yeah,
and the probability some spanning tree inside each component gets color. Let's say blue is like 1/2 power.
okay, yeah, I agree.
Could
You
also
can
do edge coloring. You can do edge coloring as you suggested, and in several cases, actually, that makes life much more easier, as you have rightly pointed out.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now coming back, yeah, yeah, like what Saket and Ruhani told, like what they are saying is that okay, now there are these inside these blue components also there are like edges going across these components, right? If you go back here, you have these pink and green components. This is in connected components. She's just saying if there's an edge going from pink to green, you can color that also because you have the budget to color it. So you might as well color it. So that's right. You can do that also. Okay.
So what Rohani is telling, and I think maybe it's a good idea to tell people a correct random experiment. So what Rayani is telling, let's color the every edge of my graph red, say with 0 and 1. And the event is good. What I expect my event is good, that all the, say, so for all the cut edges has become 1. So that's one thing which I expect. All the small component, look at all the small component, find a spanning tree in the small component, right? So if I sum the edges of these edges in these small component, they are at most q of them, because there are only q vertices, right? Right? So the number of edges could be a lot, but you have fixed a particular spanning tree. So what he wants, that these edges in the spanning tree are colored 0. Now, so now it is very clear. Now you look at the graph induced on edges 0 and look at the connected component there. If there is some connected component which is big, you don't care. And now for each connected component which are small, just pick sufficiently many that has only at most s edges going out of them, in some fashion. If that is what, if I understand this is what he's saying, and that random experiment will give you algorithm with running time 2 to the power big O of q plus s. Is that what you're saying, Rohani?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And in fact, I think after you spend this much time, the DP is polynomial time now. So there is no exponential.
Yeah, you can just do knapsack.
Yeah. That's all. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's move on to the S to the K algorithm. So now again, it will be on unbreakable graphs. And what will happen here is we'll use the same framework, color coding plus DP, what we've seen. But now what will happen is we'll be using a T-tree, Thorough tree that I mentioned earlier. So now let's look at the definition here. So what is a T-tree? A T-tree is a spanning tree of G. So a spanning tree of G is called a T-tree with respect to some cut. So now you fix this cut. It's called a T3. If now you look at the edges in the spanning tree, the number of tree edges, which are also cut edges, is at most 2k minus 2. So now let's look at this diagram. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are like 6 components. Yeah. And now what are the cut edges? These red color ones are the cut edges. Yeah. So now, so these are the cut edges which are there in the tree. So now if you look at this, this is the whole graph. There might be edges across, but what we care about are the cut edges which are in the tree, which are these red edges. Yeah. And that will be at most 2k minus 2. So in this case, if you see k is 6 and 2k minus 2 is 10. And there are like 8 edges, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So this is a T3. Okay. So now we'll be using this to design an S to the K algorithm.
Yeah. Question: what is so special about that having that value 2k minus 2? That these are the number of cut edges going across.
So this is very small, right? So if your k is small, yeah, you can like now yeah. So now we'll see why it is useful. So now S is large compared to your k. Yeah, that's why we are looking for an S to the K algorithm, right? Your S is large when compared to K. So now this tree will allow us to color using like S to the K, like color these K edges separately to get something. We don't need to color all the edges in the cut, like S edges. So if you see what coloring we did previously, yeah, we were coloring all the edges in the cut, right?
Okay, so let me add a comment. I think that will help people. So look at this tree, okay? Suppose your graph is connected and you wanted to cut your graph into K components, right? So now look at this spanning tree. Suppose you have this spanning tree, and what you know, that the number of cut edges which are part of this tree is at most 2k minus 2. Okay, so suppose you delete this 2k minus 2, how many components you have of this tree? At most like some order k component, like some 2k components. Agreed? So look at this tree, you delete this edge of the cut. Suppose I told you these are the edges of my cut. If I delete this, I get some pieces of spanning tree. Am I right? And now what you know about these pieces? These set of vertices are going to be together in some connected component, right? Because you know that none of these edges are part of any cut. It means I could have contracted them into single vertices. But now I know that I have already decided on some big chunks of vertices which go together into some piece or into some part of the connected components after deleting edges, right? So there are only order k of them. So now I can do some trivial, like putting them, which component are together, like in k to the power big O of k time. So If I have a Thorpe true, I get n to the power big O of k algorithm immediately. How? I take this spanning tree and I try all possible 2k minus 2 edges as potential cut edges. I delete it, I get into pieces, and help of those pieces, I group those group into k components, and I see how much edges are going across, right? So using Thorpe tree, you can design directly n to the power big O of k algorithm, and that is why they're interesting.
Okay, so
Okay.
the only thing that I was asking here is that any constant times k should be good enough, right? We don't need 2k minus 2 precisely.
No, it's just a Thorpe proof to k
yeah.
minus 2.
Okay, yeah, that was the thing. Like it seems just a linear k of k would be good enough. Okay,
And for that matter, any poly k would have been good. For that matter, any f of k would be good.
We want an s bar k. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I was going to say the n to the k. So that was just like, yeah, you can guess what are the edges that are there, like the cut edges of the tree. So that will be like 2k minus 2, which is small when compared to your n, right? So now you can just guesses that will take like n choose 2k minus 2 time. And now since you know all these groups are together, now you just have to like, yeah, you just have to combine these. So you can just like say, okay, get like a worst case algorithm would be just guess which paths go together. So k per k time, and then it gives you the cut. So okay, so now so what Thorpe tree packing says is that there exists a polynomial family of spanning trees, yeah, such that any optimal k cut of G, for any optimal k cut of G, there is a T tree in this family, and this family can be found in polynomial time, yeah. And so this was the exact algorithm. So using this is how Thorpe got the exact algorithm, which runs in like n power 2k time. Okay, so now let's move on to this. So now if there's an edge unbreakable graph, yeah, this is just to visualize. So now if you have an edge unbreakable graph, yeah, now what will happen? So similar to what we told, so there'll be these small parts which are together and your big part will be broken down, right? Yeah, so that's nothing special. So and there's only like 2k minus 2 edges, like these red edges, order k edges, which cross the cut. Yeah. So now I'll be using the same coloring format. The black will denote like the large part, and the colors will denote the small parts. Yeah. Now one more thing you need to observe is like just to get it clear, like if you understood the n to the k algorithm, what is happening is once you remove these red edges, any part might get broken down, but it can't get broken down into more than like the bound is 2k minus 2. It can't get broken down into more than 2k minus 2 parts. Yeah, that is crucial. Yeah. Okay. So now let's move on. So now we'll be using this to color again. But now we'll need to color in time s to the k. We can't afford k to the s time, right? So now let's see how we'll be doing the coloring. It'll be a two-step coloring. The first step will be following. So now we'll color each edge in the tree, yeah, with red or blue color. So now, yeah. So now what happens is now color the edges in the tree. So okay, let me do the good event. So now, when does a good event happen? So first you're coloring the edges of this Thorpe tree with red or blue, but now it's biased coloring. You're coloring red with probability 1 by s and blue with probability 1 minus 1 by s. It'll become clear why, you know, we are choosing this probability in a moment. So now let's see, each tree edge within these small components, yeah, must be colored blue. So I don't want the small components to break down further. So now if you see this purple part, these two purple edges must be blue. If you see this pink part, the edges within the pink part must be blue. So now let's see how that coloring will look. This is how it will look. So all the red edges must be red, and all the edges within the small components must be blue. Yeah. And you don't care about the remaining. So which are there in the large component, you don't care about it. Let's just do anything, like any coloring like this on top. You can do anything. And now let's see what is the probability of this coloring. So like now there are at most s blue edges, right? Because like now we are looking at an order s comma s unbreakable graph. So now there are at most like order s blue edges. So now when we are coloring it blue, so what is the probability? It's 1 minus 1 by s to the power s. Yeah. And now how many of these red edges, like cut edges, are there? It's like 2k minus 2. So now that is also like s to the k. So it should be order k. So now what happens is now we know that this expression contributes only a constant factor, right? So now this will give us an S to the K, and that is why we needed a biased coloring. Yeah. So now let's see why this is helpful. So now what have we done? We have colored the edges such that within the small components, these edges remain are colored blue, so they remain together. And now these cut edges are red. So now what will happen? So now if we remove the red edges, what are we guaranteed? We are guaranteed that these small components remain together, right? So now if you see, you know that these small components that have broken down, like in the tree, if these small components are broken down into some like smaller components, they remain together, right? But now we need to distinguish the small and large parts, and that is where the bound comes into play. So now let's go here. So how many small components can be there, right? Because we enforce that in the tree, if these the edges, like the spanning tree edges inside the small components should be blue, we didn't remove them, right? So now how many components would they have broken down into? At most 2k minus 2, right? Yes, I'll give you some time to think about it. So
Maybe I missed something. So why is that the number of edges in the spanning tree of the small components are S? That is, why is your blue edges at most S?
oh, that is like it's unbreakable graph, Q comma S. Now I'm just saying Q is order S. So
Okay. Q is
Yeah.
S.
yeah. So now we are looking at like order S comma S unbreakable graph. So the small components comprise of only like order S vertices. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is why they're like this. But is this 2k minus 2 part clear? Because now, you know, we have enforced that only like the edges inside these small components are colored blue and the others are red. So now when you remove the red, you're never breaking the small components which are together in the tree. Yeah. And how many of them can be there? There can be only like at most 2k minus 2 of them. Yeah. But now we don't know which ones are which, right? The large ones could have been broken down into many small components. So now we need to use this somehow, right? And that is why we need another round of coloring. So now let's go to another round of coloring. So now what we are going to do is we are going to color these like we had this Torup tree and we removed these red edges, we got these components, right? And you know that all the vertices within these components should belong to the same part in the final solution. So you can just shrink them and assume like they are vertices. Okay, so now we are going to color these components. Okay, but now how do we color them? So now we are going to use the fact. So what facts have we used here? We've used the fact that in this coloring we have used two facts. What are the two facts that we've used? Let's go back. We have used, first fact is we've used Torup tree, right? The cut edges is 2k minus 2. Second fact that we've used is the number of small parts are small, which is Q, which is equal to S. Yeah, the vertices in the small parts. But there's one more property of unbreakable graph which we have not used. What is that property? So that property is that like now you know that we are dealing with a cut of small size S, right? So now we are going to use that here. Now you have these 2k minus 2 components. Yeah. So how many, like now look at the graph induced by the edges between these components. Yeah. Now how many, like go to one small component, how many large components can be adjacent to the small components? Not more than S, right? Because in the graph, the number of cut edges was at most S. Yeah. So that's what we are doing. So now what we are going to do is we are again going to color biased. Yeah, biased coloring. But now we are going to color these components. Yeah. Now, just a heads up, we are going to shrink this component into a single vertex finally, because like they should occur in the same part finally, right? So what is the good event? The good event is that each small component is colored blue, right? So if you see these purple things, they must be colored blue. That is my good event. Yeah, but how many of them are there? Like we saw before, there are at most 2k minus 2 of them, right? And what is the other one that we are using? We are using the fact that the solution is small, right? So solution is at most S. So now what we're doing is look at the graph induced by these components. How many neighbors can these small components have to large components? They can be at most S. Now color them all red. So now this I've pointed, look, if you see these arrow marks, red arrow marks, these are the neighbors which are which are large components but are neighbors to these small components. Yeah. So now we have colored them red. So if you see this coloring, all those which were neighbors have been colored red, and you don't care about the others. They can be red or blue. Yes. So now what is the probability here? It is again the same probability computation, but now observe that it's been reversed. So I think like now blue is with probability 1 by S, because I wanted each small component to be colored blue, right? So yeah. So but the computation will remain the same. It will again yield you a 1 by e to the s to the k. So yeah. Now we have this coloring, but now why is this helpful? So now we'll go back to that DP again. Like before that, yeah, this is just to say that now we'll refer to these blue components as just vertices. We can shrink them into same vertex, right? So now this will become blue vertex, this will become red vertex. So you can just look at it as a blown up vertex. It has multiple vertices, but they'll all belong to the same part finally. Yeah. Okay, so now what happens? So now let's look at the look at it in the way that we were looking at it previously. Yes. So now in the way that we were looking at it previously, what happens? So all the red vertices go on the right side. Now these are the components which have been shrunken, right? So these are all red. And now look at these blue ones. Now we'll again get all the three properties that we wanted. But this time we'll get the size on BIs to be small. There it was Q, which was S. And that's why we had to afford like K to the S time. But now we'll get a K to the K time for the DP. So now let's see, we have all red vertices are from the large part. And this is true, right? Because all the blue components were colored blue. And now in the graph induced by these blue vertices, yeah, again, the same thing will hold, right? So because like now this is the graph. Now we've forgotten this tree. We are just looking at this graph, like the edges between all these blue vertices, the shrunk blue vertices. Either all the vertices in each connected component are from small parts or from large parts. The same framework applies, right? So this BI, this will either be wholly large or wholly small, right? And now every small part is contained in some connected component. Because we are looking on the graph induced by blue vertices, the connected components should be together, right? So now we know that this BI is bounded by 2k minus 2. Why? Because how did we do the coloring? So the coloring was such that all its neighbors in the large component have been colored red, right? So now they've gone to the other side. So how many can be there this side? There can be at most 2k minus 2, right? Because the number of small components are just 2k minus 2. So now if they are not 2k minus 2, you can just recolor it. Yeah. So finally, what is it we have? We have the same type of DP. So it's the same structure. We had the red part, we had the blue parts. Now these vertices are not just vertices, they are big, multiple vertices strung together to form the same component. Yeah. But yeah, so now what will happen is each BI is just 2k minus 2, right? So or some order k. And now we do the same thing. But now what happens? Like all possible cuts here becomes k to the k. Yeah, it becomes k to the k. And now what will be the time? The time will be k to the 2k times polygon. And yeah, so this is what I was trying to say. So initially in the S to the S, we developed this type of DP so that here we could see that, okay, the cut size just decreases here. But I think what Saket and Rohani told is also probably extendable. Yeah.
So Vaishali, the main thing that's different here in this algorithm from that is that the size of each of the BIs is at most 2k minus 2, right? All other conditions are as they were there. These extra steps just ensure the Thorup tree, all that use was just to ensure this, right? That the size of each of the BIs is bounded by something of k.
Yeah, this and another thing is the coloring also. Their coloring also took like 2 to the S time. Here the coloring also takes just S to the K time. So
right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That also changes. Yeah. But I just wanted to draw similarities. So even though you had seen the S to the S, like now you'll be able to see like how we were able to change it to this
Okay,
one. So
just one question about this DPIJ. Min DP I minus 1, the minimum of the table, the information that you have for I minus 1, J and X. So the X part is fine. But if I were to take, if DP of IJ is equal to the entry stored at I minus 1, J, then what happens to the BIth object, like BI? Does it get clubbed? Like, how is that
I think
accounted for?
this is I minus 1 comma, oh yeah, sorry, there's a mistake again. So this is DP of I minus 1 comma J minus parts of C.
Okay. All right. Sorry for nitpicking. Sorry.
Oh yeah, this should just be I minus 1. So yeah, this is my mistake. Yeah. So what this DP basically does is it just guesses, okay, what are the paths that, how many paths will this BI contribute to? Yeah. And then it also takes the best part out of that. So say now BI is going to contribute some L paths, right? It will find the best L cut of this BI. Now they'll all be separate L components. And now you know that L is there. So you need J minus L paths. Now you say, okay, what is the best I can get from this graph? Yeah. And then you glue it together. Yeah. Okay. Okay. With this, I'll just, I think it would have been clear, but let me just quickly recap. So for the S to the K, what did we do? We first colored the edges of T tree. Yeah. We used the Thorup tree that the number of cut edges crossing the cut are small. And second, what did we do? We colored the red edges. So now you know that the number of components, small paths are small. Now you use that and again now colored the vertices. And then we did a similar DP, but this was in K to the K time. Okay.
Have a Sally, don't be in hurry. Take your time. Just be like, okay, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm nearly done. So yeah. So can you give me a +1 if you understood until this part? Or if you have any doubts, you can ask me for the S to the K algorithm. Okay, thanks. So now with this, we come to the end of the S to the K algorithm. And now let's see, now that S to the K was for unbreakable graphs, right? But now we need it for general graphs, yeah? What do we do? So this is very similar to what Saket did, same framework. So now we are going to do a DP over unbreakable tree decomposition, right? But now if you remember what this unbreakable tree decomposition was, every bag is unbreakable, yeah? Some S to the order S comma S unbreakable. And the adhesion size is S, right? So the intersection of two bags is at most S. So this is what was there. But now there's again a problem for doing this DP. Let's see what it is. The number of DP states can be K to the order S, right? So if we go back to what we did even for S to the S for general graphs, there it was not a problem because already you were spending K to the S time. So now if the guesses for this adhesion was like K to the S, like there are S vertices in this adhesion and each one can go in any one of the K components. So like a direct thing would give you K into K into K, which is K to the order S. Yeah. But there it was fine. But here it is not fine because we want an S to the K algorithm, right? I'll not be going into the details, but it is simple to show that again use tree trees to show that S to the order K are enough. So just to highlight this, what you can do is that you can just pre-process the tree. So now if you have an adhesion, say A, now this tree should contain only leaves. The tree leaves should be A and none of the not degree 2 vertices, if they do not belong to the tree, it's not worth keeping. So now you just do some pre-processing on the tree, on the T tree. You can show that now the tree will contain only like K vertices. So now it will be like S to the K. Yeah. No, sorry. It will contain only S vertices. And now you can just again do like Thorup there. In this pre-processed tree will contain S vertices. Now you do this Thorup thing of S choose 2K minus 2 and you'll get like only S to the order K are possible. Yeah. So with that, I end my talk. And just to summarize further, what we saw was an S to the K algorithm for unbreakable graphs. And for general graphs, we saw the pre-processing step. So now our S is bounded. So now if we apply this S to the K algorithm for general graphs, we get the FPT approximation scheme that we wanted for general graphs for min-k-cut. Thank you. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Vaishali.